If you've ever lived in a neighborhood with a homeowners association, you probably have a story. Maybe it's a funny one about a neighbor's wild holiday decorations, or maybe it's a horror story about a fine for leaving your trash can out too long. But what most people don't realize is just how much power HOAs really have, and how little most homeowners know about the rules, the money, and the people running the show. Today, we're pulling back the curtain and exposing the dark side of HOAs in America, the secrets, the scandals, and the real impact on everyday homeowners. Let's start with the basics. When you buy a home in an HOA community, you're not just buying a house, you're buying into a system. That system is built on a set of rules called Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, or CCRNs. These documents can be dozens of pages long, and they cover everything from the color of your front door to the kind of mailbox you can have, the height of your grass, and even what you can put in your windows. Most people don't read the CCRNs before they sign on the dotted line. They're excited about their new home, and they trust that the rules will be reasonable. But the truth is, those rules can be surprisingly strict, and breaking them can have serious consequences. For example, did you know that in some communities, you can be fined for having a garden gnome, a basketball hoop, or even a certain kind of car parked in your driveway? Some HOAs have rules about the color of your curtains, the type of plants in your yard, or the size of your welcome mat. And if you break the rules, the HOA can send you a violation notice, fine you, and even take legal action if you don't comply. In extreme cases, they can put a lien on your home or even start foreclosure proceedings. But it's not just about the rules, it's about who enforces them. HOAs are usually run by a board of directors made up of volunteers from the community. Sometimes these boards are fair and reasonable, but sometimes they're dominated by a few people who let the power go to their heads. You might find yourself dealing with a board president who acts more like a dictator than a neighbor, enforcing rules inconsistently or targeting certain homeowners. And because the board is made up of your neighbors, personal conflicts can quickly turn into official business. The enforcement of rules can be wildly inconsistent. If you're on good terms with the board, you might get a friendly warning. If you're not, you might get a fine. And if you try to fight back, you could find yourself facing legal threats or even harassment. Some HOAs are notorious for sending out violation letters for the smallest infractions, like a trash can left out for a few hours or a holiday wreath that's not taken down by January 2nd. Others are more relaxed, only stepping in when there's a real problem. But the power to enforce the rules is always there, and it can be used or abused at any time. Money is another area where HOAs hold a lot of power. Every homeowner pays dues, sometimes hundreds of dollars a month. That money is supposed to go toward maintaining the community, landscaping, pools, clubhouses, security, and more. But not all HOAs are transparent about how they spend your money. Some have been caught mismanaging funds, making shady deals with contractors, or even embezzling. If you're not paying attention, you might not realize there's a problem until it's too late, and the HOA suddenly announces a special assessment, an extra fee to cover a budget shortfall or emergency repair. Special assessments are one of the most dreaded surprises for homeowners. Imagine getting a letter saying you owe an extra $2,000 because the HOA didn't budget properly for roof repairs or pool maintenance. If you can't pay, you could face late fees, interest, or even legal action. And because the board controls the budget, they decide when and how these assessments are levied. If you're not involved in the process, you might not have any say in the decision. Transparency is supposed to be a cornerstone of HOA governance, but in reality, it's often lacking. Board meetings may be held at inconvenient times, with little notice or opportunity for homeowners to participate. Financial reports may be vague or incomplete. Decisions may be made behind closed doors, with little input from the community. And if you ask questions or demand accountability, you might be labeled a troublemaker. One of the most controversial powers HOAs have is the ability to foreclose on your home. If you fall behind on your dues or rack up unpaid fines, the HOA can, in some states, start foreclosure proceedings even if you're current on your mortgage. There have been cases where homeowners lost their homes over a few $100s in unpaid fees. It's rare, but it happens. And it's a risk that many people don't realize they're taking when they move into an HOA community. So what can you do to protect yourself? The first step is to read your CCRNs and bylaws before you buy. Know what you're agreeing to, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Attend HOA meetings, get to know your board members, and stay involved in your community. If you get a violation notice, respond promptly and keep records of all communication. If you think you're being treated unfairly, talk to your neighbors. Chances are you're not the only one.
It's easy to underestimate just how much influence an HOA can have over your daily life until you experience it firsthand. The rules you agree to when you move in aren't just guidelines, they're enforceable, and the board has the authority to interpret them as they see fit. This means that what's allowed or not allowed can sometimes change depending on who's in charge, or even on the mood of the board at any given time. For many homeowners, this unpredictability is one of the most frustrating parts of living in an HOA community. Let's talk about the enforcement process. When a rule is broken, the HOA typically sends a violation notice. Sometimes it's a friendly reminder, but often it's a formal letter that feels more like a legal threat than a neighborly nudge. The notice will usually give you a deadline to fix the issue. Maybe you need to repaint your fence, remove a flag, or trim your hedges. If you don't comply, the fines start piling up. Some HOAs charge a flat fee, while others add daily penalties until the violation is resolved. In some cases, the board might even hire someone to fix the problem and bill you for the cost. What many people don't realize is that the appeals process is often stacked against homeowners. If you want to challenge a violation or a fine, you usually have to go before the same board that issued the penalty in the first place. There's rarely an independent review, and the board's decision is often final. This can leave homeowners feeling powerless, especially if the board is unresponsive or hostile. In some communities, homeowners have banded together to demand more transparency and fairness, but change is slow and often met with resistance. Another untold truth is how personal things can get. Because board members are your neighbors, disputes can quickly become personal. Maybe you had a disagreement at a meeting, or maybe you're seen as someone who rocks the boat. Suddenly, you find yourself getting more violation notices than anyone else, or being singled out for things that others get away with. This kind of selective enforcement is not just unfair, it can create a toxic atmosphere in the community, turning neighbors against each other and making it hard to feel at home in your own neighborhood. The power dynamics don't stop there. HOAs often have the authority to approve or deny changes to your property, from paint colors to landscaping to additions like decks or pools. Want to install solar panels? You might need the board's approval. Thinking about putting up a fence or a new mailbox? Better check the guidelines. Even small changes, like adding a flower bed or a basketball hoop, can require permission. If the board says no, your options are limited. You can try to appeal, but as we've seen, the process is rarely in the homeowner's favor. Money is another area where things can get complicated. HOAs are supposed to be stewards of the community's finances, but not all boards are equally skilled or honest. Some boards do a great job, keeping costs low and maintaining the neighborhood beautifully. Others mismanage funds, make questionable deals with contractors, or fail to plan for major expenses. When the budget falls short, homeowners are the ones who pay the price, literally. Special assessments can be a huge financial burden, especially if they come out of nowhere. Transparency is supposed to be a core value of HOA governance, but in practice, it's often lacking. Board meetings may be scheduled at inconvenient times, with little notice or opportunity for homeowners to participate. Financial reports may be vague or incomplete, and decisions may be made behind closed doors. If you ask questions or demand accountability, you might be labeled a troublemaker or even face retaliation. In some communities, homeowners have had to organize, petition, or even sue their own boards just to get basic information about how their money is being spent. One of the most controversial aspects of HOAs is their power to foreclose on your home. If you fall behind on your dues or rack up unpaid fines, the HOA can, in some states, start foreclosure proceedings even if you're current on your mortgage. There have been cases where homeowners lost their homes over a few $100s in unpaid fees. It's rare, but it happens, and it's a risk that many people don't realize they're taking when they move into an HOA community. So what can you do to protect yourself? The first step is to read your CCRs and bylaws before you buy. Know what you're agreeing to, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Attend HOA meetings, get to know your board members, and stay involved in your community. If you get a violation notice, respond promptly and keep records of all communication. If you think you're being treated unfairly, talk to your neighbors.
chances are you're not the only one. It's also important to know your rights. HOAs are governed by state laws, and those laws vary widely. Some states have strong protections for homeowners, while others give HOAs almost unlimited power. If you're facing a serious dispute, consider consulting a lawyer who specializes in HOA law. Sometimes, just knowing your rights is enough to get the board to back down. But it's not all bad news. Some HOAs are well-run, fair, and truly make the community a better place to live. They organize events, resolve disputes, and keep the neighborhood looking great. The key is transparency, accountability, and communication. If your HOA is lacking in these areas, get involved, run for the board, attend meetings, and push for change from within.
The dark side of HOAs isn't just about rules and fines, it's about the culture of control that can take root when power goes unchecked. In some communities, the board becomes less about serving neighbors and more about enforcing personal preferences. This can lead to a climate of fear, where homeowners feel like they're walking on eggshells, never sure if their next landscaping choice or holiday decoration will trigger a violation notice. The result is a neighborhood that looks perfect on the outside, but feels tense and divided on the inside. One of the most common complaints from homeowners is selective enforcement. Maybe you get a letter about your mailbox being the wrong color, but you notice the board president's mailbox is the same shade. Or you're fined for having your trash can out a few hours too long, while another neighbor's can sits out for days with no consequence. This kind of inconsistency breeds resentment and can quickly erode trust in the board. It also opens the door to accusations of favoritism, discrimination, or even retaliation against homeowners who speak up or challenge the status quo. Retaliation is a real risk in some HOAs. Homeowners who question the board, ask for financial records, or organize their neighbors can find themselves suddenly targeted with a flurry of violation notices or even legal threats. In extreme cases, boards have tried to silence dissent by changing the rules to make it harder for homeowners to run for the board, speak at meetings, or access important documents. This kind of behavior is not just unethical, it can be illegal, but many homeowners don't know their rights, or they're too intimidated to fight back. Financial mismanagement is another dark side that doesn't get enough attention. Homeowners trust the board to manage their dues responsibly, but not all boards are up to the task. Some lack the experience or training to handle large budgets, while others may be tempted by the opportunity to cut corners or make deals with friends and family. There have been cases where board members have embezzled funds, awarded contracts to relatives, or failed to collect dues from their own friends. When the money runs out, it's the homeowners who pay the price, either through special assessments or declining property values. Transparency is supposed to be a safeguard against these problems, but in practice, it's often lacking. Board meetings may be held at inconvenient times with little notice or opportunity for homeowners to participate. Financial reports may be vague or incomplete, and decisions may be made behind closed doors. If you ask questions or demand accountability, you might be labeled a troublemaker or even face retaliation. In some communities, homeowners have had to organize, petition, or even sue their own boards just to get basic information about how their money is being spent. The legal system doesn't always offer an easy solution. Suing your HOA can be expensive, time-consuming, and stressful. Even if you win, you may still have to live with the same board members, and the process can leave lasting scars on the community. That's why many homeowners try to resolve disputes informally first, by talking to neighbors, attending meetings, and building coalitions. Sometimes just showing up in numbers is enough to get the board to listen. But what if you want to change things for good? The most effective way is to get involved. Run for the board, encourage your neighbors to vote, and push for reforms that make the HOA more transparent and accountable. Advocate for clear, fair rules and consistent enforcement. Demand regular financial audits and open meetings. Support term limits for board members to prevent power from becoming entrenched. And most importantly, foster a culture of respect and communication where homeowners feel heard and valued. It's also important to educate yourself and your neighbors about your rights. Many states have laws that protect homeowners from abuse by HOAs, including the right to access financial records, attend meetings, and run for the board. Some states require boards to provide notice before making major decisions or to hold open elections. Knowing the law can give you the confidence to stand up for yourself and your community. The dark side of HOAs is real, but it's not inevitable. With vigilance, involvement, and a commitment to fairness, homeowners can reclaim their communities and make their HOAs work for everyone, not just a select few. It starts with asking questions, demanding answers, and refusing to be intimidated by those who misuse their power. The next time you get a violation notice or see something that doesn't seem right, remember, you're not alone. Talk to your neighbors, attend meetings, and get involved. The more informed and engaged the community is, the less room there is for abuse, secrecy, or favoritism. HOAs have the potential to make neighborhoods better, but only if homeowners are willing to hold them accountable.
The reality is, HOAs can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they can help maintain property values, keep common areas clean, and resolve disputes between neighbors. On the other hand, when power is abused or transparency is lacking, they can become a source of stress, conflict, and even fear. The dark side of HOAs is not just about a few bad apples. It's about the systems and structures that allow abuse to happen in the first place. One of the most overlooked issues is the lack of oversight. Unlike city governments or public agencies, HOAs often operate with minimal external scrutiny. There's no independent watchdog, no regular audits by outside agencies, and little recourse for homeowners who feel wronged. State laws vary widely, and in some places, boards have almost unchecked authority. This lack of oversight can lead to a culture of secrecy, where decisions are made behind closed doors and homeowners are left in the dark. Another problem is the complexity of the rules. CC&Rs and bylaws are often written in dense legal language that's hard for the average homeowner to understand. This can make it difficult to know what's allowed, what's not, and what your rights really are. Some boards take advantage of this confusion, enforcing rules selectively or changing them without proper notice. Others simply don't have the expertise to interpret the rules correctly, leading to inconsistent or unfair enforcement. The process for resolving disputes is another area where the system often fails homeowners. If you disagree with a board decision, your options are limited. You can try to appeal to the board, but as we've seen, the process is often stacked against you. You can try to organize your neighbors and vote in new board members, but that takes time, energy, and a willingness to deal with neighborhood politics. In extreme cases, you might have to hire a lawyer or even go to court. All of this can be expensive, stressful, and time-consuming. The emotional toll of living under a strict or dysfunctional HOA can be significant. Homeowners report feeling anxious about getting violation notices, frustrated by arbitrary rules, and powerless to change things. Some even say they regret buying into an HOA community, wishing they'd known more before signing on the dotted line. The stress can spill over into relationships with neighbors, turning what should be a supportive community into a battleground of petty disputes and simmering resentments. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are ways to make HOAs work better for everyone. The first step is education. Homeowners need to know their rights, understand the rules, and be willing to ask questions. Boards need to be transparent, accountable, and open to feedback. Regular communication through newsletters, meetings, or online forums can help build trust and prevent misunderstandings. Another key is participation. The more homeowners are involved, the less likely it is that power will be abused. Attend meetings, read the minutes, and don't be afraid to speak up. If you see something that doesn't make sense, ask for clarification. If you're not satisfied with the answers, talk to your neighbors. There's strength in numbers, and sometimes all it takes to change the culture of an HOA is a group of homeowners who are willing to demand better. Running for the board is another way to make a difference. It's not always glamorous, but it's one of the most effective ways to ensure that the HOA serves the interests of the whole community, not just a select few. Board members have a responsibility to act in good faith, to manage the community's resources wisely, and to enforce the rules fairly. When homeowners step up to serve, they can help create a culture of transparency, accountability, and respect. Advocacy at the state level is also important. Many of the problems with HOAs stem from weak or inconsistent state laws. Homeowners can work together to push for reforms that protect their rights, require regular audits, and ensure fair elections. Some states have already passed laws that limit the power of HOAs, require open meetings, and give homeowners more say in how their communities are run. The more homeowners get involved in the legislative process, the more likely it is that the system will change for the better. At the end of the day, the dark side of HOAs is not inevitable. With vigilance, involvement, and a commitment to fairness, homeowners can reclaim their communities and make their HOAs work for everyone, not just a select few. It starts with asking questions, demanding answers, and refusing to be intimidated by those who misuse their power. The next time you get a violation notice or see something that doesn't seem right, remember, you're not alone. Talk to your neighbors, attend meetings, and get involved. The more informed and engaged the community is, the less room there is for abuse, secrecy, or favoritism. HOAs have the potential to make neighborhoods better, but only if homeowners are willing to hold them accountable.